hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Nita and Friends. Nita is off putting her health first, and so her friends are here. That's why it's called Nita and Friends. Her friends are here. It's me, Kim McNicholas, the CEO of the Global PAD Association. And we have two PAD warriors with us, Marcia and Heinz, who are going to help me interview a very courageous PAD warrior, Juaice, who is going to share her story and help you to learn from her journey with peripheral artery disease. Peripheral artery disease being that disease that affects your peripherals, mainly your legs, specifically your leg arteries. Your leg arteries get blocked up with a bunch of gunk. It could be rock hard calcium in there, or it could be clot filled with the calcium. But it ends up leading to narrowings and blockings in your legs, and you feel like your feet are cold. You feel like your legs are being strangled by a tourniquet. It's no fun, and left untreated, it could lead to amputation, which is what uh Juaice experienced, unfortunately. But she's here to share her journey, and hopefully you can learn a little something from that. Juaice, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your courage and you taking the time to help others learn from your journey.
No problem. No problem. And it has been a journey.
It really has. Can
Yeah.
you, do you mind taking us back to the very beginning? Before you, the last time you felt absolutely no symptoms, what were you doing in your life? Were you walking miles? Were you working? What were you able to do before you started all of these symptoms?
Well, I've been on dialysis since '05, and from what the doctors are saying, of course, that's what started it, I guess, started it all, because a lot of people think that I'm a diabetic, but I'm not. I'm not a diabetic. But I worked in the healthcare field up until like 2017,
Oh,
and
wow. What were you doing?
I was a nurse's aide, a nurse's care tech, and a CCU tech, and I worked in ER. I was all around the whole hospital, and I did that up until 2017.
Oh, wow.
So where I retired in 2017, and I think I was walking okay up until mm, maybe 2021, 2000, somewhere around the pandemic is when I think it might have started roughly to where I could see a limp. But mine's got so bad to where I couldn't walk from my bedroom to the kitchen without being out of breath. And that's one of the symptoms of PAD. Um was the legs feeling hard, um and heavy like a tree stump. And I think I experienced that first. Um, so I went and had stents put in the right leg. I think the big toe started hurting first. I couldn't have it elevated without it hurting so bad. So I went and got a stent put in. Thanks to Kim, I found a doctor in Lansing, and it was Dr. Saab's group, and I found them, and they saved that left leg, which I still have. They put a stent in, and they opened that up. So I didn't really have too many problems after I had the stent put in. My big toe was turning black, but after the stent, it started back its regular normal color. So shortly after that, maybe a year later, is when the right leg, I started like kind of limping and wasn't really walking straight. So I think I dealt with the limping part maybe 2 years. And so maybe three. So this
Well,
time
why did you
last year,
wait?
huh?
Why did you wait at that point?
Well,
If
I
you're
went to
lupus?
vascular. I did go to a vascular center here in my city. And honestly, he did tell me, he was like, "Oh, you're gonna have to get your leg cut off in a couple years." And I was like, "Not me." But he was right on about that. But I did everything I could to save it. Um, but it starts in like increments. It'll start with the toe. It'll start with one toe, then it'll be maybe all the toes, and then it'll be maybe the top part of the foot. Then it'll be the heel. It had got to where I couldn't elevate this foot, the right foot, on the bed at all. Only time I could get some rest is when I would have to have it. I had to have it hanging down.
Yep.
Um, in order, and if I did have it elevated, I would have to sit up abruptly in order for the pain to stop. So I did have this another stent put in this one, but I think it was too late. They went in through my foot, and I think it was too late for this one. And they showed me um my leg was they cut my leg probably like 4 times within a month. They started above the knee, I mean above the ankle, then they started in the middle. They did a they went in and cleaned it out. Then they went a little bit under the knee. Then the ending part is above the knee. And they showed me all that what you were saying, the carotidness and all the nastiness. Because when it was cut the first time, um, they sutured it shut. And so maybe 2 weeks in, I noticed a smell and I saw a discharge coming from my on my covers. Um, and so I had a home nurse. She said, "You need to go to the hospital." And by the time I got to the hospital, it had opened all the way up. So when I was admitted in the hospital, I had a whole, you could see my bone. Um, and you could see all the infection and all the nastiness in the inside of my leg. And that's when they came and told me they were gonna have to go up a little further. And I wished I had to just let them go up as high the first time around, so I wouldn't have had to go through all that. But um, yeah, it was no circulation getting to my foot at all. It had turned completely black. Um, it almost looked like if you touched it, it would just crumble. That's how bad it was. But the pain was the only thing that I could say, that the pain and the heaviness of the legs are the only two main symptoms that just comes out and grabs at me, is the pain and not being able to elevate my foot.
Yep.
And
And the reason
I was
being is that,
falling a lot too.
and
I was
that's another sign,
Yep,
is your legs just give out on
yep,
you. And
yep.
the reason that, if you've heard Juaice talking about how she had to keep dangling her legs, it's because when you have a circulation issue with your arteries in particular, your arteries carry the blood south, and so they have the pressure pushing it south. And if there are blockages, a lot of turbulence along the way, a lot of obstacles along the way, it's already struggling to get down there. And
Yeah,
so you elevate your legs, and it's going to make it a lot harder for the blood to get there, that it's already struggling. It's just going to make it worse. So you go and you dangle your legs over the side of the bed or over the side of the chair to just try and get gravity working for you, to give it a little help, give it a little extra pressure down there to get more blood flow. But I'm
yeah.
curious, Wawees, um, you had mentioned that your first set of stents was at the one hospital. Then you found us, and we were able to find you a CLI fighter in the area to help you with your other leg. And you said you then went for 2 years limping without seeking care.
Hmm.
In knowing that you did have doctors, and in knowing the progression of this disease, I'm curious why you ended up limping for 2 years versus seeking help. Was
Well,
there some?
I wouldn't say limping per se. I would say I was out of breath, and I didn't tie the two together. The out of breathness with the legs, in which they very much have something to do with one another. But I would be out of breath. Not
Because
really.
you were working so hard to push it?
Yep, yep. I can't really say I was limping per se. But I would just be out of breath at short distances, like from my front door to my car. I would just have to sit down. So I think that was a main sign right there, was that I had to sit down. But the pain didn't come until, I would say, a couple months before it started turning black and
So it
getting.
really it really took you to the point that they started turning black, that it really hit you that there was something going on.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
Is it because your leg, in a sense, with you have chronic kidney disease,
Mm-hmm.
and the issue with chronic kidney disease is PAD can be a complication along with that. But coming with that as well, with the PAD neuropathy, did you ever get diagnosed with neuropathy and maybe felt some numbness versus the typical cramping that
Not
people feel with PAD?
not a diagnosis, but I probably self-diagnosed myself because I was Googling and doing all this different stuff, and I saw that the zaps that you would get, zaps, and it feels like an electrical zap. And I still do get the numbness, like tightness around my ankle on my left foot, the foot that I have left. So yeah, I got some of those symptoms inside.
So, when you finally did realize that you had something going on, your doctors had been driven out of business. Your CLI fighters that saved your leg in the first place were driven out of business, so you didn't know where to go.
Well, yeah, I did see Dr. Saad, but I think by the time I saw him, it was too late. It was
You
no
had already been in
saving.
the hospital you'd already been in the hospital and had other things going on
Yep,
prior
back
to.
and forth. Yep, yep.
And so, did they treat you inside the hospital beforehand? Did they try an angiogram to open
Uh,
things up and stent or anything like that?
oh, like I say, I think it was too late. It was too late. The foot had started. Um, it had started hurting so bad to where right after the pain, that's when it started turning black. Now
Yeah.
I did get my toe cut off first. I got the toe next to the big toe. That one that happened first. I got that cut first, and then that didn't help it any.
And I
So
remember I cried the day you sent me a video
yeah,
that after you were treated and they tried to do the angiogram, they thought they got some really good blood flow, but the problem was, I heard, was lack of proper wound care in the area, with board certified wound care specialists. And so when you went home and you had a home care nurse coming in, you had them treat it, clean it, wrap
yeah.
it. And what did you wake up to the next morning?
Um.
It was the video you sent me.
Oh, with the maggots. Oh yeah. Um. My son would keep his window open, and his room is right next to mine, and I would keep mine closed because with being on dialysis, I'm always cold. So with me nodding, I used to nod off on the bed. And your body has a way of telling you something ain't right. And that's one of the things it was telling me, that I had an infection, basically. So I kept nodding off and nodding and nodding and kept falling asleep. So I think this particular time I fell asleep and one of those a fly came in, excuse me, and burrowed uh into my the wound in my foot. And so I didn't know that I had maggots on my foot until I got to the second day I got into the hospital. I had no idea. I couldn't feel them or anything, but the doctors in the hospital, they were in no rush to get rid of the maggots. They was kept saying that they cleaned the bacteria and all that. So they didn't really bother me until the day of surgery. When they unwrapped it, it felt like one of them had turned into a fly. But yeah, they kept them on there for my whole what 5 days before I went into surgery. So yep.
Wow. And they do. It's squeaky clean. We actually ended up getting a prescription for one of our other group members for maggots. And we were able to actually prevent further amputation with him because I had never seen a squeaky clean wound like I saw when the maggots got done with it. It was
Yeah.
absolutely incredible. But there is a very specific way that you need to dispose of those maggots afterwards. I'm surprised they got to the point where one actually flew off. That's a little disconcerting.
Well, no, no, no. It felt like it was a fly. It wasn't. They
Oh, it
were still
wasn't.
maggots.
Okay,
Yeah. It just felt like one.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
good, 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 good. Just making sure. I
Yeah.
always worry about safety.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I want to bring in my fellow co-hosts. We have Marsha, we have Hines, and also another Marsha. Marsha B is here. So feel free to jump on in. We'll start with Marsha, but you don't have to wait to be called on. Just go ahead and join the discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, my question is, like after your first leg and you had issues, did they advise you to walk and things that you could do maybe on your own to help?
Oh yeah.
Were you not
Oh yeah.
able to walk or?
I couldn't. I had planned on going from the house next to mine, and I was gonna go to the next house the next day. That never happened because I couldn't breathe. I couldn't. I would be so out of breath to walk from like I was saying from my door to the sidewalk. It was no way I could have done that. And plus, my legs were so heavy; they felt like tree stumps.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very difficult.
Well, you see, I have a question for you. I am sure that they did some sort of scan of your heart before the amputation. They typically do as standard protocol. But when my dad was not only experiencing his heavy legs were because he had bilateral venous blockages due to occlusive clotting. But then on top of that, his right coronary artery ended up compromised. And so it would make me wonder in hearing you still continuing to have symptoms, whether or not you've gone to your cardiologist and asked them to do an additional scan of your heart to check for any blockages there. 3 in 5 people who suffer a heart attack have PAD.
Yeah, yeah. And I see my cardiologist probably seem like once every 3 weeks, but they did a echo, and the echo showed that I had an extensive amount of fluid. So I'm not sure if they didn't know if that was fluid in my legs, because when you have a bunch of doctors, somewhere down the line, someone is bound to drop the ball. And I think that's what happened with me. Somebody dropped the ball as far as uh, what this doctor is doing along with what this other doctor is doing. So yeah, I think that's kind of what happened.
Where do you
Okay,
live?
we're gonna work on that. We're gonna get that checked. That's
Yeah,
now on my
yeah,
list.
yeah. I'm in Flint, Michigan.
You're in Michigan, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that 2-year period, you said it was about 2 years. Maybe I missed what you said. You didn't seek help, or were you just, what was happening? Like when you're to your foot to get that bad?
Well, when I first started having problems with my legs, I went to a vascular doctor, And they did say, well, you have peripheral artery disease. So just look forward to getting your leg cut off. Point blank simple. And so 3 years had passed and I didn't really have too many issues with my legs until that foot started hurting and I couldn't keep it up on the bed. So I went back to the doctor. And that's when I think I reached out to Kim first. And she sent me to the specialist. So I was able to keep the left leg. They put the stent in, and that's the stent that they put in then, it's still doing okay. Not great, but it's still doing okay because I still have some like tightness or whatever. But yeah, that's yeah, that it was probably about a 3 year period. Yeah. So
Heinz, do you want to jump in?
Juaice, I had a couple questions, but every time I came up with a question, Kim already asked it. So, how are you doing today,
I'll
though?
step down.
What's how's your health today?
well, I'm still on dialysis. I'm a fresh amputee, upper knee amputee. Other than that, I still, I'm the dialysis has given me AFib. Because of medication, I don't really have a problem with it too much. Long as I take the Minidrin and the Metoprolol. But other than that, I'm just trying to save this left leg I got now. So,
Are you trying to grow?
Oh. Well, I was just going to ask that. So that's still being monitored, your left leg, and
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
And Marcia Burr, go ahead and unmute. Marcia has been fighting for her leg as well. Marcia, go ahead and share your experience and ask. Can I call you Weesey? We've known each other for too long.
That's what I'm called.
See your question.
Yeah, I just caught in on the last part of your story, and my heart goes out to you. I think we all here can relate to your story on one plane or another. You brought up a good point that you had said that you thought someone lost track, and this is a big problem with peripheral vascular disease. I was first diagnosed with PAD. Actually, I had a widowmaker heart attack when I was 52. So I'm now like approaching my 70s, and I have actually peripheral vascular disease. But at first they said PAD, and they put a stent in my iliac artery, which then started blood flow down to my feet, and my toenails started to grow again. And I got this most horrendous ingrown toenail on my great right toe, which turned into an open wound that I've been dealing with for over 2 years now. And thanks to Kim, I found a very good two good interventional cardiologists. One brought me along as far as he could, and then Kim referred me to another one who is just amazing. And my problem with this multidisciplinary approach is that, yes, we do lose. It's hard to connect them all. And listen, I'm on top of my medical situation. I used to work in a hospital, so I kind of know the drill. But even me, with my background and knowing how to speak to doctors, it's like, God, Kim, I wish we could add this to the Leg Saver hotline, is good certified wound care and podiatry people. Like, I'm still searching for a podiatrist in what is considered a medical hub in North Central Florida in Gainesville. And the last time I saw the podiatrist, she's like, no, she didn't even touch my toe. She looked at it, said, no, I'm afraid you're on board for amputation. And since then, I've had I've had venous ablations done, which have helped immensely, and I had another arterial procedure done. And my toe, the
Yep, me
pain
too.
is getting better. And I feel like now, gee, wound care, just don't be afraid. Even if it hurts, I'm willing to put up with some pain. Just start debriding it, please. So I'm
Right.
wondering, golly, should I ask for maggots? And then I heard of this
Yep.
product called Juven today,
Hmm.
which is loaded with L-arginine and a whole bunch of other good stuff. And a lot of times reps will give it to wound care centers and podiatry people.
Hmm.
It's an over-the-counter product, but it's really, really expensive. But I heard it's an amazing product that really helps to deliver more oxygen to your wound. So I'm going to look into that too. But I wish you the best success. My question for you after my long dissertation there is, are they getting you up out of your wheelchair? Are you able to move around some? Like,
Oh
are they
yeah.
on
Oh
top of
yeah.
that? And like,
Oh yeah. I scoot around and yeah, because if not, uh, I have two boys, two young adult boys. I have to get up and see what's going on.
yeah,
So
well,
yeah,
good. I mean, keep on moving because, as when we quit moving, that's when the circulation stops and we just
yep,
fade away. And so,
yep.
we got to just keep on keeping on.
Yep, and I have an occupational and a physical therapist. But one thing I wanted to say too is, and it's sad to say, but I think when I was making these appointments to see these doctors, they were so far out that I was losing time. I was running
Yeah,
out of time. Yep, because I
yeah.
wouldn't be able to see a doctor for another month.
Yeah, or
So
waiting to get approval. And it's
yep,
insurance care. It's like
yep,
we're always battling these little tiny annoyances, really. In the bigger picture of things, I consider them annoyances to have to, deal with the insurance and blah blah blah. But these are
yep,
people doing their jobs too. And so we just got to keep on going on and keep a good attitude about it all, I think.
yep. That's all we could do.
Yep.
Do you have a prosthetic yet, or are
Not
you?
yet. I have a small little wound. It's not even as big as it's healing now, but it was right at the corner when I would wear a shrinker. It's like the shrinker was like a thick plastic, and I put it on one day, and then they told me to take it off at night. That was my first day wearing it. When I took it off at night, I had like the sore at the end. I never even noticed it until I took it off that time. But it had like a scab on there and it had like pus coming out. So I my home nurse came the next day and she was like, "Oh, that looks infected," because we had just dealt with, my lower leg and all of that, the smells and all that. So she was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't mess around. Go to ER." So I went to ER, and one of the vascular surgeons came to the hospital and he was like, "No, it's not infected. Just keep it washed with dial soap, bacteria soap." And that's what I did. So after that, I would say like 3 or 4 weeks passed after that, and the scab would come and it would soften up, and then the pus would come. I mean, this was repeatedly, like every 2 days. So I finally got in to see the vascular. I went in and got to see the vascular surgeons, and so it was a lady doctor, and she came in with a long Q-tip, and she went inside of the wound and she dug it out, and it was like a big plug she dug out. And so she said she wanted me to start packing it. So it's healing from the inside out. She said, now, if it doesn't heal, or, because I got another appointment next week. And she said, if it's not healing the way we think it should, she said, because sometimes the human eye can't see, from the inside. Sometimes the eye can't see things. She said that I might have to go back into surgery, but it looks like it's healing. It's nothing compared to what it was.
Oh,
So I'm hoping
I'm
that,
glad.
yep,
And
I'm
that's why it's so frustrating, for so many patients out there that are the most at risk and most vulnerable patients at risk for peripheral artery disease. in so many cases with diabetes and chronic kidney disease, it literally skips the intermittent claudication stage and goes straight to CLI. You go from supposedly asymptomatic straight to critical limb ischemia, meaning the most
Yep.
advanced
It
limb threatening
happens. It
state.
happens so fast. You're right. Yep. It
And so
happens so fast.
it's hard to believe that the ARC Act has stalled in Congress, which would have made ABI testing, early testing for PAD, something that all the insurance would cover, which would mean that more primary doctors would be proactive in testing for PAD. Our stance at the Global PAD Association is if you have chronic kidney disease, you could be 30 and you should be tested. You should have an ABI. You should have they should at least take their hands, 2 fingers, 2 seconds to feel the feet. That's all it even takes for early diagnosis of PAD. And yet still no one's doing it. And so if there are other people that are out there that are on dialysis or even in the earlier stages of chronic kidney disease without dialysis, you need to have your doctor check your feet, period. Every single appointment, I don't care which doctor it is. Take off your socks and say, hey, doctor, touch my feet, look at my feet. Feel the temperature, feel for a pulse, check for any wounds. It
Yep.
is absolutely important. And your limb may have been saved. They may have caught it earlier. Not that they would have treated it or that we're saying that it needed to be treated with an intervention at that point. But if they would have caught it earlier, there might have been some additional medications they might have put you on. There might have been some dietary modifications. There would have been, guaranteed, a push for walking as medicine and a regimented walking program. But because you ended up not being diagnosed till you were in CLI, you were already on the chopping block at that point.
Yep. Yep. That's true.
And then on top of that, when you finally did actually feel those symptoms of PAD, you couldn't get in right away.
Oh.
Right? It took you what, more than a month to get in, which for someone in CLI, the situation can degrade awfully quickly.
Yep.
And so for those that are out there that might be at risk, whether they have high blood pressure, whether they have family members who have ever been amputated, family members who may have had clotting disorders, family members that may have suffered a heart attack early on, family members who may have suffered a stroke early on. They might have sugar, meaning they might have diabetes or even pre-diabetes. Even one sugar molecule can damage those arteries and wreak havoc, causing those blockages, particularly in the toughest areas below the knee and into the foot. People with chronic kidney disease or other kidney issues, autoimmune disorders, high cholesterol. Although 40% of people who suffer a heart attack have normal cholesterol in a basic lipid panel. It's not until they do an advanced lipid panel where they're looking at the quality of those bad cholesterol particles, the LDLs. And you could have a lot of large, fluffy ones and be okay. But if you have a lot of small, dense LDL particles, those are the ones that are going to wreak havoc. So you could look like you have normal cholesterol, but if you have this imbalance between the large, fluffy ones and the small, dense ones, and you have more of the small ones, then it's likely you are having some damage to your arteries that's being created, and these little particles are getting into trouble. So it's worth actually getting checked, saying to your doctor, hey, I might be at risk for PAD. Would you check my feet? Would you order an ankle brachial index? Right? Those are the blood pressure cuffs on your legs and your arms. It's so important, right, Weezy?
Yeah, very important, because living with PAD, I never even thought about how uncomfortable it is when your legs are not healthy. It's uh it's something else. It's you don't want to go through it, like the pins and the discomfort and the walking and like when you're trying to go to sleep at night and you and it's even more than just uh having to wear what do they call that, restless legs. It's more than it's way more than that. Just having restless legs. It's uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. It's I don't even have a word to describe it. But
How
yeah.
important, how you have found, I'm sure, that choosing the right doctor is so important.
Oh yeah.
And would you mind, because we have so many patients that trust their doctor because they have a white coat. What have you learned about that experience and what advice would you give others?
Do your own research. Um, check out different reviews. Um, find somebody like Kim, of course. um, yeah, because the first doctor that I ever ran into, he just blew me off and was like, "Oh, you got to get your leg cut off eventually down the line." And I was like, "Huh?" You know, uh, I think they did do a Doppler then. They did do that, but for him to just say that was like his bed. I mean his
Yeah, his bedside manner.
bedside manner. Yeah, it was just totally like, wow. What school did you graduate from? But I mean, like I said, you just got to do your own research. Yep, and pray and ask God to direct you. You know, that's all we could do. But yeah,
What
I
advice would you
think if
give? Go ahead.
I I just think that if I had been more knowledgeable, uh, I probably would have taken care of my legs when I could. Now, when I first went to that doctor that told me, "Oh, you get your legs cut off," I was jumping and bumping and running and everything. You know, I forgot. I probably had like small, maybe like a pain here, a pain there that made me go to the doctor in the first place. But I think if I had been more frugal and I would have went to another doctor and got it checked out a little more advanced. So
It sounds like also what you're saying is that instead of, if that first doctor would have sat down with you and said, you have peripheral artery disease, you're
yep,
at risk of losing your leg. Here's what you need to start doing on day one to
yep,
prevent that from happening. The power is in your hands. Here is our strategy going forward. And here's what you can do to keep
yep.
your legs. What difference would that have made for you?
Oh, a big difference. It was none of that. I mean, I felt so uh like it was a beautiful day outside that day. I remember because I remember when I walked outside, I was like, wow, the sun is shining. But I didn't feel like that. I felt like gloom. Like he said, my leg is getting, gonna have to be cut off. So yeah, it makes a big difference as far as who you find, what specialists you find that, because it's a lot of quacks out here. So yeah, yeah, it's
And what role, do you think that that moment played in making you even more fearful of going to the doctor and delaying future care because of it?
um
Do you think it made you, because of the dismissiveness and concern about losing your leg, do you feel like that had any impact on you deciding whether to go to the doctor now or wait?
mm, well, with me having so many things going on with me, no, because I'm gonna go to the doctor.
That's good.
Yeah, I got so much going on, so I can't really, take chances like that. So, mm,
Some have told me that when the doctor told them that they were going to lose their leg, they just refused to go back, to the point where they ended up where their leg literally couldn't be saved.
yeah,
And if they had only had a kind doctor initially that would have said, okay, you are at risk of losing your leg, but here's what you need to do to prevent that from happening, X, Y, and Z. And so you make sure that you stay on top of this and get back to me and get tested and get treated if necessary sooner rather than later. But instead, I've had several people that literally ended up waiting till the brink when their whole leg was black. One lady ended up coming when she had a bag wrapped around her full leg because it had gone completely gangrenous, and it was wet gangrene, so it smelled. And when it smelled, she put a plastic bag around her leg with a rubber band, and still waited
mm,
several days before going to the doctor because she feared losing her leg that much,
mm,
even though she knew at that point it was going to go.
mm.
And it's
It is.
Marsha B, go ahead and ask your question or chime in.
Yeah, wow. I sit here, I hear your story, and again, I'm amazed. Like, even me coming from a medical background, I mean, I kind of self-diagnosed the problem myself, but then I was sent to a vascular surgeon who is very good at explaining the different stages of peripheral artery disease. And at that time, he told me I was at stage 2, which is claudication. And if we could keep it there, that'd be great. But then I jumped like right to this sore on my great right toe. I mean, within months, it's really amazing. And so, I mean, I know enough medically. I asked and I worked at a research teaching hospital, even. You'd think they would know. I said, well, do you know of any other specialties or doctors I can go to talk about this? Or are there any research studies going on? And he said, no. Just like that, no. And I mean, I worked in radiology, so I know about interventional radiology. But the fact of the matter is that Kim, like a matter of synchronicity, really, I joined the Facebook group and told my story, and she chimed right in and said, no, wait, don't get a bypass, see a different doctor, da 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 da. And so that's the journey I've been on. And fortunately, so far, I've been able to save my toe. And, picking a doctor is so very, very important. I would add to the list of what you suggested is that, number one, there is a very good list of questions. Uh, isn't it on the Facebook page somewhere stored?
It's in our group. It's padsupportgroup.org. padsupportgroup.org.
Okay, good. So you could get a list of questions to take to the doctor with you. But then also remember, and I learned this from working in a teaching hospital actually, is that, you know what? Doctors put their pants on the same way you and I do, maybe even better than we do. They have belly buttons. They're human beings, and we can't put them on pedestals and just blindly trust. So again, we do our research, we ask the proper questions, and if we don't get the answers we're looking for, then we find another doctor, get another opinion.
Yep.
And that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Marcia, for chiming in. We really appreciate you. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it's
Welcome.
been a hard journey. The journey is far from over. And we've talked about we're going to get your other leg checked now,
Yeah.
make sure that we don't wait any longer. And we're also going to get your heart checked. And people need to know that you need to have both your legs and your heart checked. You should also get your carotids checked. In fact, I have a great acronym that is going to be very easy for everyone to remember. to always, always, always check with your doctors. C for carotids, right there on your neck. H for heart, make sure they check not only for the beat, AFib, also make sure that you get checked for valvular issues. A is for your abdomen, check for an aortic aneurysm. Unfortunately, my mom passed tragically from an undiagnosed aortic aneurysm. It can be easily missed, but a simple stethoscope on your belly can give a doctor an indication of turbulent flow known as a bruit. It's spelled brute, B-R-U-I-T, brute, but it's actually pronounced bruit. And then toes, T is for toes. That means go down, doctor. Take off my socks, check my feet, feel my feet. Check
Yep.
those pulses. Look for wounds or any discoloration in my skin. Look for that lack of hair growth in that area. It's so important. So make sure you do chat with your doctor. And if you have any questions about peripheral artery disease, please do not hesitate to reach out to the Global PAD Association. We have a Leg Saver hotline for those in the US, 415-320-7138. And you can see it right up there at the corner of my screen, 415-320-7138. You can also go to our website. And our website is PADHelp, H-E-L-P, PADHelp.org, anywhere in the world. And you can go to our help page and submit a form there, and we will get right back to you, usually within minutes, to see how we can help facilitate any sort of care or provide you with comprehensive education on PAD and the risk factors that go along with it. But thank you everyone for joining us. We really appreciate you. Again, thank you so much, Juaice, for joining us and your courage and sharing your story and helping others to save